Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Pocky and Rocky Reshrined, a re-imaging of an iconic favorite. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From publisher Natsume Atari and developer Tengu Project, Pocky and Rocky Reshrined, or specifically in this case, Kiki, Kaikai, Kuro, Mantle no Nazo, released for the Nintendo Switch and the PlayStation 4 in Japan in April of 2022. A worldwide release is planned for late June of 2022, so if you're looking forward to this title and you don't want to import it, then you don't have long to wait. But if you are willing to import this title, it's fully available in multiple languages, so don't let any kind of language barrier hold you back from that. So this title is a really great re-imaging of the original Pocky and Rocky. There are a few issues I have with that, but if you're a fan of the original Pocky and Rocky, then this is definitely one that I can heartily recommend to you. And even if you're not, if you like the multi-scrolled style shoot 'em ups, then this is one that you should definitely check out. So here we find ourselves at the main menu of the game itself. There are two modes we can play it in. There's a story mode, which is a single player experience, and in that one you're only able to play certain characters through certain stages. And then we have the free mode, which you unlock by completing the story mode or earning enough coins. Going into free mode, you have the ability to play between one player or two player. You cannot play with two players in the story mode, something to note. Today we're going to show off the game in two players. Selecting two player, we're given our difficulty. In free mode, there's just normal and hard. In story mode, you do have the extra option of an extra easy mode, but that also has to be unlocked by earning a certain number of coins. Selecting normal, we're taken to our player select, and here you can see the 5 characters that are available in the title. Initially, we're going to be showing you the game as it would be compared to the original Super Nintendo release, Pocky and Rocky, with the characters Pocky and Rocky. We've got this wonderful map screen, kind of reminiscent of the original title and other games such as Ghouls and Goblins. Or Ghouls and Ghosts, sorry. And then we have a wonderful little section here where we begin our gameplay. So initially you can see that we can move around in any direction, and we have a main attack that we can fire in 8 directions around us. The up, down, left, right, as well as the diagonals. There are a couple other attacks that we have available. All characters will have a deflect. In the case of Pocky here, it's her going and swinging her wand around, and you'll banish the enemies in that one. There's certain advantages to doing that. That also has the ability, since it's referred to as a deflect, it will act that way and deflect back enemy bullets, but the downside of using it against enemies specifically is that you'll banish them rather than defeating them, and you won't get coins. So if you're looking to get coins, which is an addition to this game compared to the original, then you'll want to use your regular shot to defeat them, not your deflect. Though I really do like the particular animation of the enemies fading away when they're banished. It's just a nice little touch that I think is pretty neat. So the game itself is very much a re-imaging or kind of a remake of the original Pocky and Rocky. It's not a remaster by any means. The story's been reworked. There's certain elements that are different, like having additional characters added in there and really forcing you to use those characters as well through the story mode. As in the story mode, so for example, in this stage you're playing as Pocky, but in the stage 2 you're forced to play as Rocky. Then we bounce back and forth between other characters. So throughout the course of the stage, you might see that there's these little, not quite bento boxes, but boxes on the ground. So there's several different items that we can pick up throughout the course of the gameplay. Some are orbs of different colors, so the blue orbs power up your base shot. There's also a red orb, which gives you a fire attack, which is what Rocky's sporting right now. And when you get hit by enemies, you'll often power down. And if you're lucky, the orb for your particular attack will actually come out of you, and you have the ability to power back up. But that's not always going to be the case. There's also a new magic type that's so both the fire and like your powering up your main shot existed in the original title, but there's a new magic type added in Reshrined as well, the wind magic, and that one's represented by the green. A lot of times it's a slower attack, but in most cases it's going to be really powerful, like homing focus. Although if we're looking for outright strength, actually, here we can go and see Rocky using the wind magic. A lot of times that one ends up being a homing one, even if it's a slower, so depending on the boss, you're actually better off with that one. So here we find ourselves against the boss of the first stage. This boss is nearly identical to the original Pocky and Rocky, where we're fighting this like demon, beam thrower, as it were. Actually, he himself just seems like a bean, and his attacks are the same for the most part. There's actually some differences here that we'll see momentarily. So, in addition to the deflect and the shot, we do have a special. So the number of specials you have available to you are represented in the bottom, underneath your character portrait. It's that green orb, and it is possible to obtain some particular items throughout the course of the game. It's a thunder orb, I believe, that will give you additional special special attacks. So here's where the game starts to kind of vary from the original. Even the story bits that you get at the beginning of the game are the same as the original Pocky and Rocky, but there is no second form of this boss from the original game, so we start to see the differences emerge. And in addition to the stage being a little more fleshed out, the pixel art being far more defined, we have differences like that. So with that, the first stage is completed. We get our end game or end stage summary, and we'd move on to the second stage. The second stage is very similar to the second stage from the original, so we're going to take a second to skip over that, and we'll come back in the third stage with additional characters. But while we're doing that, I do want to show some of the comparisons of the second stage with the original. So here's the first stage from the original Super Nintendo release, so you can see some of the differences that are present with the first stage compared to what we just played through. The second stage itself is largely similar, but once again the background is far more defined, and some of the fights are slightly reworked. In particular, I do kind of enjoy the way that the one-eyed Oni that we encounter multiple times throughout the stage has changed. In addition to that, I really quite like the way that this particular bamboo boss is in Reshrined compared to his the fight in the original. The fight in the original game was really trivial if you were the least bit powered up, but it's more of a challenge in this version, and I really do appreciate that. We also have a raft section that ends with the same octopus fight, but after that octopus fight, that's where the game really diverges. After that boss fight, we find ourselves back at the world map, but we're in a different location altogether, and stage 3 is where the game really diverges from the original. So here we find ourselves at the beginning of stage 3, and as I was mentioning, this is where the game really starts to diverge from the original, both in story and in, well, the stages themselves. And to illustrate that, we decided to play as the additional characters that you unlock throughout the course of the story. So we have the one character, the samurai, that's using a naginata, basically a halberd type weapon, which is short range but quite powerful. Then we also have the goddess Ame no Uzume, who attacks long range like the other characters, but has not these Magatama that surround her, that those Magatama deal damage, as well as kind of positioning themselves in spots around the player, thus making it a little bit easier to deal damage if you're close range. Another thing that we haven't mentioned up to this point is there are attack augmentations and extra defensive buffs that you can use with every character. So for Pocky and Rocky, those particular attacks for Pocky would be her attack augmentation as she summons a mirror similar to Ame no Uzume, but instead of the 3 that we're seeing here, it's just the 1. But her deflect power-up is the same, where it's a rope barrier, whereas Hotaru here sends this moon slash out with their sword. If you hold down your deflect button, you can send that out. This deals damage as well as deflects enemy bullets. The rope barrier will defend against enemy attacks, so it's definitely useful. As far as Hotaru's attack augmentation, which you get from tapping your attack button, in this case it's a long range rapid fire, which can be helpful with a character that doesn't have the ability to attack long range. Another thing is there's some unique abilities that the characters have in terms of movement. So there were slides similar to the original game that we've been making decent use of to avoid damage, but specifically Ame no Uzume in particular can fly, or float rather, so pits and water are no challenge to her, whereas the other characters would take damage. Something to keep in mind, and something that's really awesome. As far as Rocky's attack augmentation and defense, so for that one, it's similar to the original game where he can transform into one of those roadside statues again. But there's also the ability to transform, or summon a shrine rather, where you're basically kind of acting as a turret, being stationary and being able to fire in all the directions around you. So there's some advantages there and all. One thing that is neat about the mirrors when you're playing multiplayer, the mirrors will fire shots at the enemies regardless of which character is activating them. So it could be the first player or the second player, which makes teamwork with a set of combination of characters like this really helpful. So this part of the stage I'm not necessarily a big fan of because I don't like these hands. They're not terribly tough to deal with, just something about their movement and the trickiness of actually getting in decent shots against them I don't enjoy. And that's basically Pocky and Rocky Reshrined for your enjoyment. So I mentioned that the title I don't feel is perfect, and there's a couple frustrations that the game has. First off, the biggest one, when we first fired up this game, we were really gung-ho and raring to try it out multiplayer, but multiplayer is locked behind completing story mode or earning all the coins of which we're collecting for the enemies. And you can see we're not collecting a ton of coins throughout the course of the gameplay, so it's not going to be something that you're seeing or that you're going to be achieving very quickly, as it takes 10,000 coins to unlock free mode. It's significantly easier just to buckle down and challenge yourself to complete the story mode, and then you'll unlock the multiplayer as well as the other characters. So this boss itself is kind of an interesting addition. It's one where in order to attack the boss, you have to get in when it opens itself up to the core, but it also sends out these enemies around it, which you have to defeat in order to get itself to open back up when it summons more. So that was really the biggest minus flavor, was just not having multiplayer unlocked from the beginning of the game. Then with multiplayer, and specifically free mode in particular, I guess it's not just the multiplayer, when you continue, in the original Pocky and Rocky, it would give you the option of changing which character you were playing. That's not the case in this title, and that's one that I would like to see. So really a lot of these complaints are stemming from things that were in the original game that don't exist in this reimagining of that title. And then lastly, there's no way to steal any lives or continue if you lose all your lives in a two-player game, whereas once again that was an option in the original title. That said, the plus flavors, there's a lot of fun being able to play the game with multiple characters, especially where you have ones with different play styles, like Hotaru here, or Amino Uzume, or even the hidden character, or the last unlockable character, Ikazuchi, who doesn't play a role in story. So at this point, I'm not 100% sure how to unlock them, and we haven't played the game enough to be able to do so yet. So if you do know the method of unlocking Ikazuchi, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I'll go ahead and make it a pinned comment so others can know that method as well. But I really do appreciate the diversity of having different characters to challenge the game with. Then you've got the wonderful sprite work that the title had. So it kind of is adhering to that 16-bit aesthetic, but something a lot cleaner. So really it's probably kind of a cross between 16-bit and maybe a 32-bit pixel platformer type gameplay, and really that's kind of the sweet spot for that visual of look. And then lastly, I really do feel like this title itself came out as a great remake. So reimagining the game, changing up the story, really did a lot for this title in my opinion. So the original, and even the Japanese title of it, was something that I did find amusing. So in the original title, the Japanese version is Kiki Kaikai, Nazo no Black Mantle. And for this version, they took that and they changed it around to Black Mantle no Nazo, so they changed the order of that, changing the meaning, but keeping the original words there. Whereas for the English release, they had to kind of add something to delineate it from the original, so hence the Reshrined. Definitely one that I recommend you give a try to, especially if you're a fan of the original. And with that, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.